Hey guys, and welcome back to another Tkinter video. In this video, we'll be covering a very important topic, Tkinter key bindings. So what are key bindings? Well, they're a way of binding the keys, the various keys that you use, like the A to Z keys, the 1 to 9 numeric keys, the left click, the right click on the mouse, and the scroll wheel as well, and even dragging the mouse. These are all key events in Tkinter. You can bind these events, and not even these, there's actually a whole list of other options as well. You can bind these keys to specific events, to specific functions in Tkinter. So for instance, if you click a button and you want something to happen, you can bind that specific button to the function that you want to execute. If you don't understand what I'm saying right now, this concept will be more than clear by the end of this video, so don't worry, all right? That's enough of an intro. Let's begin. So you can see here that we've already created some widgets. We have the frame over here, right? We have the label over here, the button, the entry, and the function call, all right? So we'll be experimenting with key bindings on these widgets, all right? You see, key bindings are not only to the Tkinter application. You don't just bind an A to the general Tkinter application. You can bind the keys to anything in Tkinter. You can bind it to the Tkinter instance, root over here. You can bind it to the frame. You can bind it to a label. You can bind it to any widget in Tkinter. This gives you a whole list of different options, and it is unbelievably powerful. And I'm going to be showing you how exactly to use this correctly. All right. So you see this self.bindings function here. I like to create a separate function for the bindings. I could just do this over here. I could do self.label.bind. All right. But I prefer to have all the bindings in a separate function. All right. So let's just do that. I'll create this function called bindings. All right. That's going to be called in the init function. All right. And let's begin. Let's begin with the master. All right, we'll go in order. We'll start with the master, which is the Tkinter instance. Then we'll bind to the frame. Then we'll bind to the label. Then we'll bind to the button. Then the entry widget. All right. So yeah, let's begin with the master. For this, I want to do something really simple. I'm just going to bind the A key to it. All right, like this. And I'll do this. All right, what is this? I'll explain that in a minute. All right. No, actually, let's change this to something more explanatory. What's pressed? All right. Okay, look. So the bind function takes two parameters. The first is an event. All right. The format in which I wrote this is basically an event, a key, a way of expressing a key. All right. You can write here A, you can write here B, C, and 1, whatever you want. All right. And the second parameter is a function, all right? It takes a function. Now, one easy way of doing things, I like to use lambda over here. There's an alternate way you can do this. Print, all right? Self and print A was pressed, all right? And you could just replace this with print text, all right? You could just replace this with print text. Okay, but why am I not doing this though? One, I don't want to go around creating so many functions, all right, for just one message. Secondly, in this format, you're only allowed to you can't include the parentheses, all right. So if we wanted to include a parameter here, all right, a para, then it's not possible, okay? Because if you don't already know this from previous concepts, if you include parentheses over here, it's not counted as a function name. It's counted as a function call, and it completely ruins the purpose. All right. This is why I use lambda events. All right. Because we're going to be passing in extra parameters as well. So yeah, that's important. So let's actually run this. All right. Here's our window. There's the label. There's the button. There's the entry widget. All right. I'm going to press A now. All right. And look at that. The A key was pressed message has printed out. All right. And if I keep pressing it, it'll keep printing. Again, this is a really handy feature and a really handy way of triggering events in Tkinter. All right. It's all up to you how creative you really are. So next up is the self.frame. All right. For this, we'll explore enter. All right. Now this does not mean the enter key. All right. This is actually something else. It quite literally means enter. It means when you enter the frame. It's a bit hard to explain this like this, so I'm just going to show it to you. No, how this mouse cursor has entered the frame. All right. This is pretty explanatory. All right, let me run this and show you. All right, so this is our window, but the difference is that when I hover over the screen or when I move into the screen, the message will be printed out. All right. Now it doesn't matter if I'm inside; it only prints it out. That it only triggers that function once the event of entering the frame has occurred. All right, and then I'll enter again. All right. And note that it won't trigger if I'm over here. That's because this is part of the Tkinter instance, all right? So if you wanted to trigger over here, then you should bind it to self.master, all right? But since I binded it to the frame, it only triggers at this point, all right? You can see over here, the gray area. Okay, so that's the frame done. And let's go for the label next. We'll explore the mouse options now, all right? Button 1. All right, so button 1 is for the left mouse click, all right? There's button 2 for the middle mouse, the middle mouse meaning the scroll wheel, all right? You can click on the scroll wheel, by the way, so that's why it counts as a button. And there's 3 for the right click, all right? We'll just go with button 1 for now. Okay, so we'll print out mouse has clicked the label, all right? Let's try this. I'm gonna click over here. Okay, and look at that. If I keep clicking, it'll keep printing out the message over here. Again, a pretty handy feature, all right? So next up is the button. Now over here, we're gonna explore a very handy tactic. It's basically, we're gonna be recreating a hover kind of effect. Okay, and this is gonna be a bit complicated. It's just a bit long, it's an easy concept, all right? And this is where the lambda really shines. I'm going to create a function called color change that takes the widget whose color is meant to be changed and the color into which I want to change it. So let's say I want to change it to green or red, all right? And that. Now I'm going to actually go ahead and create this color change function, all right? Let's call this widget. All right, and this color. All right. Now, if you guys don't already know, you can change using the config function, and we can change foreground to color. So let me explain this once again. I created a lambda over here to basically call this. So basically, we're sort of working around the restriction that you cannot include parameters. All right, because the lambda fulfills that condition. So basically, the lambda is the one calling this function. So it's basically we're increasing the number of steps by 1. All right. Sort of like instead of the bind function calling the color change function, the bind function is calling the lambda, which is calling the color change function. All right. So this way we can include parameters. All right. So yeah, this is the button to be changed. All right. Self.button. All right. And this is the color to which we wanted to change to. This is config. This is used to configure the options, the various parameters over here. For instance, text, we could use it to change the text, all right? And foreground over here is for the text of the color. Sorry, I mean, what am I saying? The color of the text, all right? Background is for the button itself. You can use background to change the color of the button, FG to change the color of the text, all right? So hopefully this should run. I think I've done it correctly. Okay, now, okay, nope, slight mistake there. Self. Okay, look at that. The color of the button has changed to red. Okay, but when I move off of it, it still remains red. So let's fix that. I'm gonna copy paste this. and make a new one called leave. This triggers when you leave the widget, all right? So I'm going to change it back to black, okay? And look at that, it's red. I move away, it turns back to black. Again, this is a really handy feature for a hovering effect. You can change anything. You can change the size of the button to maybe expand a bit when you hover over it. This is something that's usually there would be some kind of default thing built in, right? If you use CSS, there's the hover ability, but over here you have to recreate that, and using key bindings you can easily do that. Okay, so next up is the entry widget, and this is going to be a bit complicated as well because we're going to look at some new key bindings. All right. Okay, so where to begin? Well, the purpose of this entry is to take a username, all right? That's the purpose we've given it, all right? So what I want to do is to showcase two different kinds of key bindings. One, I want to showcase the key binding, sorry. Right, so what does this do? It means that if any key is pressed, any key on the keyboard, whether it be A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, F1 or whatever, whichever key is pressed, it will trigger, all right? So why am I doing this? Well, let me show you. Let me just create the event first, all right? It'll be called self.username check, all right? Because we're taking in usernames here, remember. That's the purpose we've given to this entry widget. Okay. What I want to happen is that as the user enters a username, it checks to see if this username is already taken or not. I'm going to create a new variable here, a new list called usernames, all right? I'm going to enter some usernames in here. Let's just go with something generic like player1, all right? Night, all right? Fortress Legacy, all right? And YouTube, right? That's enough. So these are the usernames that we've defined as already existing, all right? So basically we want to ensure that the user will not enter one of these usernames, all right? So let's go over here and create a new function called def username check. Okay, and it's going to basically self.entry. Okay, this is going to be a bit complicated. We want to first iterate over that list, all right, for username in self.usernames. Okay, and I want you to retrieve the input. Okay, no, let's go with text in the entry widget. Get will retrieve that currently entered text in the entry widget, all right? So what I'm basically gonna do is that if the text is equal to any of the usernames in the usernames list, print out username already exists, right? So let's just review. Anytime a key is pressed, the username check function will be called, which then checks the username. All right, so let's just run this. And let's go ahead and try that first, all right? Okay, look at that. We have the player, we wrote player1 over here, and then the username already exists message was printed out, all right? So this is working. So you may wonder, why did I pick key? Why did I pick key as the the key binding for this? Well, you see, when you're normally entering usernames in forums, do you sometimes it happens that you have to click on the submit button, right? And then it tells you that the username was already taken. But sometimes I think you might have noticed that when you're entering a username, all right, into the sign up page for any place, all right, you're entering your username and your password, and then before you even press the submit button, you've barely finished writing in your username, and the message pops up saying username was already taken, right? So this is how it happens. Normally, in the one where you click the submit button, it sends that, it then retrieves the data from once you click the submit button. But when you use key over here, it basically keeps checking the username while you're entering the data. It doesn't wait for you to press the submit button and then it retrieves the data and then checks it. This way will basically check it every time you enter a key. It's a bit excessive, but it's probably the best way of actually quickly telling the user that no, the username you're entering is wrong. Pick a new one. All right. Again, a pretty handy feature. Okay, so that was a bit long. There's just one last one that I really want to show you here, and that's really cool. It's focus. In. All right. So what does this do? Well, it's similar to the inter widget, all right? Sorry, the inter key binding, in the sense that it's basically when you select the widget, all right? Again, remember that the key bindings I'm teaching you here are not widget specific, all right? I mean, some won't really work on others, yes, but okay, let's just go ahead and do this first, all right? I'm gonna make a new function for this actually. It's called focus in, all right? Or more like, let's change this to focused, all right? I'm gonna create that new function here called, actually, why am I doing this? Why don't just print out simple print statement, entry widget has been selected, all right? Again, don't worry, I'm gonna explain this. Now I'm gonna make a new entry widget, all right? This is important. And create number, all right? Okay, put this a bit lower. Okay, and I'll make a new one. I'm gonna make one for the focused out event, right? And has been deselected. All right. So just before I run this, just keep one thing in mind. We have two entry widgets now, all right? And we've binded the focus in and focus out key bindings to this entry widget, all right? This one right here, self.entry, not this one. Okay, so I'm just gonna run this now. Okay, I'm going to enter something over here. And there you go. You can see here that the entry widget has been selected. I didn't actually have to enter anything over there, all right? Now watch this. I'm going to okay, so I'm basically going to focus my entry widget. Focus is actually an entire attribute, and it's actually an option inside Tkinter. It's used for highlighting as well and all kinds of different things. But if you didn't already know this, focus means to basically select a widget, all right? In the entry widget's case, it's when you click on it and basically that small cursor, keeps blinking inside of it, ready to enter data, right? So basically, I'm going to do that. I'm going to click on the entry widget right now. And there you go. Entry widget has been selected. This is pretty handy because sometimes you want something to execute once you've selected a widget. Again, it's all up to your creativity and it's all up to what you guys can think of. Now, I still have the focus out event to show you. Focus out occurs when you deselect the widget, when you're no longer focusing on that widget. And by the way, you can only have one focused event at any given, one focused widget at any given time, all right? That's why I made this second entry widget, all right? So that I could click on this and focus it and show you that the focus out event will occur. And look at that. The entry widget has been deselected, all right? If I do this again, it'll be selected again. If I deselect it there, all right? You can't actually deselect it on these, all right? Clicking on this will not, let's try that again, all right? Now I have this selected and I'll click the button. It didn't deselect it because the button and the label both aren't something you can really select, right? Not like the entry widget. Other examples of things you can select are the combo box or, well, the text widget as well, yeah. So that's about it, I think. We've covered all kinds of events. We've covered how to use regular keys, all right? We've covered how to, basically when you're entering it. We've covered the mouse clicks as well. We've covered leave. We've covered any kind of key, a very general type. We've covered focus in and focus out, okay? Now, there's still more, obviously, there's still more key bindings. There's a whole list of them, and well, there are all kinds of different things. There's even one for dragging the mouse as well, which is pretty complicated. So I actually have a link to the website in the description below. You can find a whole list of key bindings over there, as long with some explanatory text. I highly advise you to check that out because, again, there's just so many, you can't realistically memorize them all at any given point. All right. So yeah, that's about it for now. And subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and see you in the next video.